Hello. We made it through another week, another fabulous week, another hopefully sunny, beautiful week. We are ending rainy, but still a very, very nice end to the week. Going into the weekend feeling great. We're going to be celebrating our two youngest birthdays tomorrow. Super excited. We had to move it to inside since it's going to be raining, but we're really, really excited. And so today's Friday, and I said I was going to try and do lives Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And so I am sticking to it. I am keeping myself accountable, and hopefully these videos are helping you just figure some things out for yourself, help you get unstuck, and like I said from my very first video, move from surviving to thriving. So today what I want to talk about is self-mastery and habits that can help you transform your life in 90 days. If you're like me and you've ever felt stuck in this cycle of start, stop, you like knowing that you're capable of more, but like you just can't seem to stay consistent, or you find yourself in that, start, stop cycle. And it could be a lot of different aspects of life. It could be, the big one is working out. It's living a healthier lifestyle is some of the big ones that people, talk about. But, there are definitely a lot of areas that we all have that habit of starting and stopping. So before really getting into the talking points for today, what I want to ask you is in the comments, tell me, what is one habit you wish you could truly stick with? And again, these could be any habit. It could be sticking with a workout routine, sticking with a wake up schedule, sticking with reading the number of books I plan on, stick with school. It could be any habit. So in the comments, write, a habit that you wish that you could finally stick with. And like I said, there's definitely a few that I could say myself, and I will put those in the comments as well once I'm done. I'll definitely, do exactly what I'm asking you to do. And so number one, let's get into the first thing, is what is self-mastery? Like, really sit with that for a second and really think. When you think of the words self-mastery, what is it that comes to mind for you? Now, self-mastery to me is the ability to manage your thoughts, manage your emotions, and your habits in a way that aligns with the life that you want to build. Now, in this self-mastery quest, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're not going to get frustrated or that you're not going to mess up. It just means that you're aware of what's going on and you're going to keep choosing growth. So that's really what it's about. Self-mastery is about being aware of your emotions, being aware of your thoughts and your habits, and also understanding that even through all of that, you're going to encounter hardships. Life be lifing. And when it be lifing, that's when you're like, you want to stop. But self-mastery is going to help you push through and keep going, because your goal is going to be growth, not perfection. So, when you think of self-mastery, some of the key things that you think about are self-awareness, self-discipline. This is, I think, the one thing that people struggle with is self-discipline. For me, one of my weaknesses is sweets. I'm a sweets person. Chocolate, caramel, like, y'all, it's really bad. Like, sometimes, like, if I buy like a party pack of double stuffed Oreos, I can literally eat that by myself in one sitting. If I have before. And so I just choose not to normally buy stuff like that, because I know if it's in the house, I don't have as much self-control and self-discipline to be like, nope, I don't need to eat, 40 of the cookies. I can eat 2. And something else to think of when you think of self-mastery is self-compassion. I think sometimes we forget to give ourselves compassion. We are quick to give other people compassion, like no problems. But when it comes to us, we find it hard to be compassionate with ourselves. So those are the three things when you think of self-mastery that I want you to think about: self-compassion, self-discipline, and self-awareness. Again, self is in all of those words. And also, you have to remember that you don't have to be perfect and in control. And I think that's something that a lot of people struggle with, is not being in control all the time. Sometimes things are out of our control, and that's when it's a little bit difficult for us. We like to try to control as much as we can in our life, which is all well and good, but we have to understand that life, we can't control every aspect of life. And when you really think about self-mastery and you're working towards self-mastery, that's when you're going to realize, like I've talked about, I think in almost every video, that's when you're going to start to realize that our life, we have started living on autopilot. Because life's, and we all have responsibilities. We all, for the most part, probably have jobs or are entrepreneurs. And so we're living that, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, if you work, or if you're an entrepreneur, you set boundaries to create times, but you can find yourself working 12, 14, 16 hours, especially in the very beginning of your business when you're trying to get it up and, up off the ground. You find yourself just working. Because a lot of times in the beginning of the business, you're every role within your business. You don't have the money to, pay for a VA, pay for a coach if you're in the coaching business, pay for admin, pay for a lot of things. You don't have that luxury when you first start. And so we find ourselves living on autopilot. And self-mastery, when you really start to look at self-mastery and start trying to take back control of your life, that's basically what you're doing. You're taking yourself off autopilot and you're now taking back control of the wheel, which is your life. So I would have to say, if I look back and as an example for myself about, when I found myself living on autopilot, and as I've said in a lot of my previous videos, it's really been the last 3 years. I just found myself going, every single day was for the most part very, very similar, or pretty much the same. Waking up at 4 a.m., driving an hour to work, working 8 hours, driving an hour back. And on Mondays, I would have both my classes. So I'd have 4 hours of classes. Tuesday through Saturday, I had clients. And Sunday, I had church. And that is literally what I did every single day of the week. There was very, very little variation. The only variation might be like a client cancels or a client needed to adjust their counseling time. But I found myself just going through the motions. I didn't have any time for myself. I didn't have time for a lot of time for my kids. So it was just the same thing every day, all week. Now my situation for that particular situation that I'm talking about was a little bit different in the sense of, I knew there was an end time to that autopilot. I knew that there was an end and that I was going to be able to shift into more control of my life, more control of my schedule. Obviously not full control because I still do work 9 to 5, 6 to 2 in my schedule, and for my job. But I knew that time was going to come to an end. So it wasn't too bad being on autopilot, but it was for 3 years. So that was a very long autopilot. And so I knew that once I was done with school and once I was done with my program, that was when I was going to make changes. And I have definitely made changes and definitely started doing things to take back control of my life. And we'll get into some habits, and you'll see like some of the things that I'm doing for myself to kind of take back control. So that's the first thing, looking at self-mastery. What is that? And so the next thing I want to talk about is why 90 days. Many of you probably, a lot of things that you see, books and workshops and stuff, coaching, a lot of it is 90 days. Especially when it comes to like losing weight. Give yourself 90 days to really be able to see a difference. But the reason I like 90 days is because it's still short, but it can have long-term impacts. So Again, I'm going to be talking about habits as well, but 90 days is just enough time to slowly be able to make changes. But then by the end of that 90 days, a lot of times we can see significant change and improvement and growth. And if you research and look at research, some of the research that I've seen about, it takes about 65 days to 90 days to create lasting habits. And I think a lot of people, one of the things they struggle with is 90 days seems like it's so long. And you're like, oh, why should it take that long? But it does. If you think about habits that you've created over time that you weren't trying to create, but you did, and you see how long you've been doing these habits, do you really expect to change that habit in a week or in a few days? And so being able to have realistic expectations. So 90 days is short enough to have it to change. 90 days is short enough to be able to give you change in habits, and also long enough for you to be able to see the change. And if you think about it, when you think about time in life, 90 days is a manageable amount of time. 3 months in a year. If you think about it, in 3 months, I could lose 15 pounds. Or I lose 10 pounds, whatever it is. I can read 2 books, whatever it is. 90 days is a really manageable time when you look at it over a year, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years. However long you've been creating these habits, these bad habits, 90 days is very, very manageable. And it also helps you stay focused because it's such a short amount of time, it helps you feel like it's an attainable goal. If you look at long-term goals, like when I first started my master's program, I was like, oh my gosh, it is a 3-year program. Like that is so long. Like that's what I kept telling myself. But then I started making smaller goals. I'm like, okay, this term, which was, my terms were 11 weeks. I'm like, I want to get a 4.0. That was my initial goal, was to get all A's in like the particular term that I was in. That was my initial goals. And so it seemed more manageable. And it actually, when I looked at per term as opposed to the program as a whole, the time ended up flying by faster because I wasn't concentrating on necessarily the end date, but I was concentrating on that particular moment, that particular term, which ended up being 11 weeks. So again, almost 3 months, and it seemed to go by fast. Like every week I'm like, oh man, it's getting closer and closer. And then before I knew it, the term was over. So 90 days is definitely a manageable time and something that you can stick with. So that is, why 90 days. And the third thing I want to talk about is the power of micro habits. And I think one of the biggest mistakes, and I'm guilty of this as well, is we expect big change and dramatic change in such a short period of time. So I'll give you an example. Losing weight's a big one. A lot of times people wait to lose weight until they have to go to an event or whatever. So someone will say, in 30 days, I want to lose 15 pounds. But this person is like, let's say they are 175 pounds. And so when you look at it like that, you're like 30 days and you're going to lose 15 pounds. And I mean, that seems like, is that doable? And then of course, if you look at like the statistics of what's healthy to lose, then you're like, I'm not sure that's attainable. And so when you're looking at micro habits, these are small actions that you repeat consistently. So for example, I'm going to, let's say, work out. I'm going to work out 5 days a week. Now I'm saying that after I haven't worked out, let's say a year, I haven't worked out in a year. And I'm like, I'm going to start working out 5 days a week. Now the chances that I'm going to stick with all like 5 days starting right off the bat is not very high. So instead, I would say something like, I'm going to work out 2 days. 2 days a week. Now that's a more attainable goal than 5 days, because if you think about 5 days, Most people work 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, Tuesday through Saturday, whatever 5 days looks like. So then you're like, what's the chances that after working 5 days, that at least 3 of those days they're going to go to the gym, either before, after, or during work? But if you say 2 days a week, then it's more likely that that person's going to work out 1 day before, after, or during work, and then maybe one time on the weekend. So that way, or whenever their off day is. That seems more attainable than 5 days a week. And then just like the book Atomic Habits, small habit changes over time compound and create big change. And so I love Atomic Habits. I've read the book before. I actually have the book. I should have actually brought it so you guys could see it. But it's a great book talking about how compound interest works when it comes to changing habits. And we are in a society where we have a microwavable mentality. We expect things, we expect to put in the microwave, put it on for 1 minute, and it's good to go. That is not real life. And so after this third point, what I want you guys to do is in the comments, have you ever tried to change multiple things at once and burned out? I will go first. I definitely have tried to make drastic changes and I burnt out. I like using working out because so many people have that habit that they would like to create and keep and frequently start and stop. But when I was getting ready to go into the Army, I had to lose a lot of weight and I had to get in shape for the PT test. So I was doing 2 hours a day. I even went and I did juicing. I did a juice fast for a week. All of this at the same time to try to make sure I was in shape and in regulations to go to the Army, go to basic training. Let me tell you what, that was awful. That was not a good thing to do. I did not work out all year like I should have. I waited till a couple months before I was getting ready to ship out to be able to start working out. And anybody that knows me knows the biggest thing that I had an issue with was running. I hate running, hate long distance running. I love sprinting, but long distance, not my forte. So trying to improve my run time to be able to get into Army regulations Army standards it was brutal. It was brutal. But I did make it, but I was burnt out at the end. So that was my kind of habit, multiple habits that I tried to change, which was losing weight and getting into physical shape for the Army. Again, that's not a lot of things to do at one time, but I was going so hard and in such a short period of time that I really burnt myself out. But I did leave basic training in the best shape ever, but that's beside the point. So that was the first 3. The next point that I want to talk about is how mindset shifts that support transformation. Habits are amazing, and changing your habits slowly over time is amazing. But habits alone are not going to help you stick with maintaining it if you don't also change your mindset in that time. And the mindset that we need to have is a growth mindset. Something like I can learn and improve, or I can lose 5 pounds. I can run a 9-minute mile. I can read 1 book a month. Those are the growth mindset sayings that we should be able to say to ourselves to help us along with the habits while we're changing them at the same time. And you also want to replace shame with curiosity. The path is not going to be a straight path. You're not going to get it perfect. You're not going to get it right along this journey. But instead of saying, oh, I failed, or, oh, I didn't do this well, instead, change how you say it to yourself. Say, instead of I failed, okay, what can I learn from this? How can I use this to grow stronger? And it seems silly, like changing just those little phrases from I failed to how can I grow from this it completely changes how you view the situation. It completely changes like how you react in the future to situations. It just changes everything as a whole. Words are powerful. I think words are definitely stronger in many instances than like physicality. Words can be the biggest game changers, and how you word and phrase things makes a huge difference on your internal dialogue. I promise you, if you're constantly saying negative things out loud, your internal dialogue is going to start to be negative. And then if your internal dialogue is negative, then all you're saying in all situations is negative. So we need to have that growth mindset and shift like the failure thoughts and shame and feeling like you didn't do it. Change it to curiosity and growth. How can I use this situation to grow in the future? What did I learn? How can I learn from this? And the other thing I think that a lot of us, what we fail to do is celebrate small wins. We wait till we have this major accomplishment. I'll use business. How many business owners do you see say, oh, I just made a $75 sale, or I just booked my first free consultation with a client? You know, how many businesses do you really see talk about that on social media? And then ask yourself, how many times do you see business owners say, wow, just made my first 6 figures, just made my first 7 figures. Oh, I just created a program that's $20,000 and I got 5 signups. You know, you will see those type of announcements all day long. But how many businesses celebrate the small wins? Oh, I got 1 new lead today. I made my first $100. I made my first $1,000. You know, like whatever it is. Not many people will celebrate those. Why? Because they don't look at them and feel like other people don't look at them as wins, or that it's even worth mentioning. And so for me, some of the small wins for me, I'll use my school as an example. At the end of the term, when I got my grade and I got 2 A's, I was like, yes, I'm on my way to that 4.0 that I would like to get by the end of this program. Running, I was, you know, my mile, I think at one point I had got it to like 11 minutes or something. And I was like super excited because I shaved off 8 seconds. And at the time I didn't understand how much 8 seconds was to shave off a run time. But now I realize how much 8 seconds is. But at the time it seemed like a small win. And I was excited because that meant at the time that meant I passed my PT test. So I was super excited. So again, mindset along with, you know, making incremental habit changes is a game changer for anybody. But again, setting realistic expectations is also, I think I would group that into mindset. We want to make sure that we have realistic expectations, and also putting things onto our mind that are attainable and make it less giant. Because if you look at, at the end of the year, I want to have lost 100 pounds. That seems like it's so far away and so much weight. Instead, look at it, okay, each week, okay, maybe not 100 pounds, but like say each week, my goal is to lose 3 pounds a week. 3 pounds each week. So if you look at it week by week, it seems more attainable than looking at the whole year and what your objective is by the end of the year. And the 5th point is the 3 core areas of self-mastery. Now, when you look at, again, I'm looking from the perspective of a working mom. To me, I think there are 3 pillars every working mom needs to focus on. The first one is emotional regulation. As a parent, as a mom, sometimes we do not have control over our emotions because there's so much on our plate. We have little people that depend on us. We have responsibilities of taking care of them financially. And so we have all this stuff going on. And so sometimes regulating our emotions is very, very difficult. And so to regulate emotions, there's a lot of different things, small things that you could do. The biggest thing I think that a lot of people like to do is journal. If you're a writer, journaling is amazing to be able to get your emotions out, what you're feeling, and to really be able to look back on it. Breathing exercises, because if you are tense and if you really pay attention to your body, you notice like your shoulders are tense, you're maybe breathing more shallow, you just find yourself just short breaths, and when in those instances, find yourself in a quiet spot and just do breathing exercises, like in through your nose, out through your mouth. Or some people use like guided breathing exercises. Like YouTube is a huge place that you can go to, but breathing exercises. And I think one of the things that I've taught my kids, and I'm attempting to work on this every day, but pause before reacting. We are a very reactive species, and many of us will react instantaneously. And I definitely was guilty of this in my teen years, probably in my 20s. Not as much now. I do have moments where I react really, really fast without taking the time to pause and think before actually reacting. So that's the first thing. Emotion regulation is some of the things that you can do to help yourself. 2, routines and discipline. As a parent, routines are very, very important for us, but sometimes the routines just don't happen. Your kids wake up late, go to bed late, they're sick, you get sick, and so routines all messed up. And when you think of routines, also routine for yourself, self-care. So it could be morning and night rituals. For me, the thing that I incorporate into my morning and night ritual is I wash my face, I put moisturizer on it. I do that every morning and every night. Obviously, there are going to be some days I miss either morning or night. But I incorporate that into my routine because I just felt like, okay, I want to be able to start taking care of myself. And like I said in another video, one of my coaches, she schedules self-care appointments. Hers look like facials, massages, getting your nails done. She loves herself some crabs, so she'll even make an appointment to have crabs. So stuff like that, scheduling self-care appointments. Because like I said in almost all the other videos, that's the biggest thing that is a gap in our lives is self-care. We put ourselves on the back burner, and before we know it, we are burnt out. And the third thing working moms need to focus on is self-compassion. We are always, for the most part, compassionate about other people, are quick to give out that self-compassion. But then when it comes to us, we are harsher on ourselves. So we need to learn to be kind to ourselves when we fall off track. Don't automatically go with you're a failure, you're never going to do it. Don't go straight into that mindset. And speak to yourself as if you're talking to a friend. It sounds funny and it sounds weird, but talk to yourself like you're talking to your friend. So you can give yourself the same self-compassion and softness that you give your friends when they come to you for advice, they come to you for an ear, just anything. And so when you look at the 3 pillars that I've described, emotional regulation, routines and discipline, as well as self-compassion, which of these areas do you think you're the strongest in? And which of the areas do you think is the hardest for you? For me, I would say the easiest one is routines and discipline. Military, school, work, all of that require me to be, disciplined and have a routine. So those ones I think are easier. I think the hardest one for me is self-compassion. I am my own worst critic, and I expect perfection from myself. I ended as an example, I expected, like I said, a 4.0 in this program, in this graduate program. I ended with a 3.906. I got 1 B plus and I think 2 or 3 A minuses, and the rest were A's. And that's an amazing GPA. But the first thing I said to myself was, man, I should have got a 4.0. Why didn't I get a 4.0? Instead of understanding that I was still able to maintain a 3.906 GPA while working full time. The last year I had therapy clients, going to school full time, and still being a mom. And so instead of looking at it like that and realizing that, hey, that is a huge accomplishment, instead I looked at the negative of I should have got a 4.0. And so as we talk about self-mastery, one thing I want you guys to do as you do this 90 days, you need to be able to track this. It does you no good if at the end of the 90 days, you don't realize where you started and the steps that you took to get to the end of this 90 days. Because then you look back and you're asking yourself, what did I even do? I don't even understand what I did. Because it's been slow and gradual, you don't see the progress that you made, that you started with, and how much you made at the end. And so the way to keep track of this is a journal, a habit tracker, or any type of tracker. And then along this road, every week, ask yourself, what are you working on this week? What is your goal this week? Look at last week. What was your goal? What did you end up accomplishing? And then look at, okay, now what's this week's goal? And then focus on consistency and not perfection. Because I promise you, if you concentrate on perfection, you're always going to be in the negative. You're always going to have this negative self-talk like me. I had it until I realized, no, 3.906 in a graduate program with the schedule that I had, no, that's an amazing, because I don't know how many people say, I don't know how you're doing it with the schedule that you have and the responsibilities that you have. And even though those people were telling me, I just expected perfection from myself because the 4.0 was perfect. And so I expected perfection. And so when I did get an amazing, ended the program with an amazing GPA, I wasn't able to see it because I expected perfection for myself. And so these are the 5 areas that I wanted to talk about today when it comes to self-mastery. It's all about making small changes, being consistent, changing your mindset to a more of a growth mindset, and setting realistic expectations and deadlines for yourself. Don't look at the ultimate end goal, because if you look at the ultimate end goal, you are going to set yourself up for failure. Because if you look at, I want to lose 100 pounds, and in the first month you lose 5, you're like, I'm never going to make it. And then you give up before you actually start. And in this self-mastery quest, really be kind to yourself, because the world can beat us down and have us second guessing every aspect of our life. So we need to be able to slow down, have self-compassion for ourselves, and set aside time for us. Because in this self-mastery quest, you also don't want to get stuck and not be able to rest and recover. And so it's just a daily grind. And sometimes we get lost in this daily grind. We get lost in the ultimate goal, and we forget about the journey on the way. Sometimes we're so focused that we don't even enjoy the journey on the way, because there's a lot to enjoy in the way. I promise, if you really stop, think, and take time to really look at what you're doing weekly, monthly, you will be able to see, man, this was fun. Like losing 5 pounds is amazing. But then when you think about, okay, I got stronger. Like I was able to lift more weights. I met a friend at the gym. I cut down my run time, like all the things along the way, and you'll start to see the positive things. And if you start to change your mindset to a growth mindset, and if you start to make these small incremental changes, I'm telling you, at the end of this 90 days, you're going to be amazed at how much has changed in that 90 days. And then you do another 90 days, and then another 90 days. And then by that time, a year has passed, and you can look back at where you started, and you could be like, man, it went by fast. Like once I started looking at my master's program by term, it was crazy when it came time to graduate. I'm like, man, like we're here. Like I can't believe it. I feel like it's like the first term. Like I feel like we just had the first term. But because I was looking at things by term as opposed to the program as a whole, it made the time go by so much faster. 90 days is so much more manageable. It's so much more feasible. And it makes us think that we can do it, and you can. So in the comments, what section do you feel like spoke to you the most? Which section do you need to work on the most? And if you have any tips or tricks for others on how to self-master, write that in the comments. Like I said, I'm gonna go back after this and go into the comments and write some of the things for myself. But let's keep these conversations going. We got to look at ourselves as a whole if we want our lives to move from surviving to thriving, y'all. Enjoy your weekend. Hopefully it's sunny where you are. It's going to be rainy here, but either way, I'm excited and I'm happy. I get to celebrate my boys and celebrate yourself this weekend. Okay?